And
The
we're
meeting is now live.
now live. Welcome, everyone. Just turned over to 7 p.m. I will call this meeting of Lambton Shores Council to order, and would ask if anyone has a pecuniary interest to declare it now. Deputy Mayor Cook.
Yes, I have a declaration on the Corner Lions planning or zoning meeting that's coming up in the future.
Okay, so noted by the clerk. Anyone else? Seeing nothing. Approval of the agenda. It's a recommendation that it be approved as listed. Moved by Councillor McGuire, second by Councillor Sageman. All in favor of that? That's carried. Thank you. We have no items under the closed session for tonight's meeting. Item 5, we have 2 sets of minutes, August the 11th and our meeting of August the 18th. Moved by Councillor Scott, second by Councillor Wilcox. Any questions on those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Councillor reports. Anyone have any items? Councillor Scott.
Just Lambton Shores Nature Trails has just installed on the forest trail heading down towards the sewage treatment plant 4 pollinator boxes that will be planted tomorrow, and they're there to encourage obviously butterflies and hummingbirds and other birds to come there. So we're quite proud of that and kind of excited to see what happens with it. So
Great, kudos, thanks to our trail committee. Deputy Mayor Cook.
Thank you, Mayor. My wife and I, Pam, we attended Paint Ontario at the Heritage Museum on Sunday, just to take in this year's event. It's quite different because there's nobody there, and obviously the big opening celebration that we normally have and meet some of the artists, that didn't happen either. But the display is excellent again this year. The quality of paintings is really good. The mayor has picked out a very nice painting again for the year, and I think everybody should be welcome themselves and try to get out there to attend it. It's very good to see.
definitely.
Okay, yep. Anyone else? Any other reports? Okay, seeing none, I guess other than the summer season is over and our staff did a great job looking after our beach as best they could, whether it's bylaw, beach staff, or lifeguards. Certainly a challenging time for lifeguards, and our appreciation should go to them for the job that they did all this summer. So with that, if there's nothing else, we have public meetings. Report for the Ontario Street Drain, and there's a recommendation that we hold a meeting, consideration of the drain report under section 878 of the Drainage Act, and we will convene that at 7:03, moved by Councillor Scott, seconded by Deputy Mayor Cook. All in favor of that? That is carried. And do we have our engineer? There he goes. Hello.
Good evening, everyone.
I will turn it over to you to present this report.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Brad Bunke here from GM Blue Plan Engineering. And as mentioned, we're here to talk about the Ontario Street Municipal Drain Report this evening. Considering the format, I have a few slides that will go in addition to a copy of the report that I understand Council has for the completion of this. But for the sake of the virtual format, I may flash through some slides and share my screen as we go to highlight a few of the pertinent points for this particular drain. So just as a brief introduction, as mentioned, we are Section 78 of the Drainage Act. We were appointed to look at improvements to this Ontario Street drain. The request for improvement was signed by one landowner, Matt and Pamela Apersco, and this is in the community of Fort Port Franks. I will share my screen at this point to give somewhat of the bearings. Where everyone's at. Hopefully everyone can see the introductory slide there. Okay,
Yep.
and I'm going to go to mine here just so I can scroll through. Okay. All right, so share here. Sorry, folks, technical difficulties here. I just want to make sure I get the right one. There we go. Sorry about that. Okay, so the area that's being considered for the Ontario Street drain, it's a fairly large watershed, again, in the community of Port Franks, just north of the Northville office. This drain was constructed in 1975 originally, and on the portion that's within the urban boundary or in the right-of-way on Ontario Street, we have about 150 meters of drain that's closed in. The downstream portion of that, about 400 meters, is an open drain, and ultimately the outlet for this is the lower Mud Creek drain number 1. And I will go to the next slide. This is the property in question, fronting Ontario Street. And under existing conditions, there is a 400 diameter concrete field tile, again from 1975, that goes through the Persco property, and that's represented in this drawing with the yellow line. And what we found through the request for improvement is the landowner would like to relocate this particular drain so that a cottage and a septic system can be constructed. So just for everyone's reference, again, very simply, that red line is our existing Ontario Street drain through the subject property, and the proposed relocation is shown below. Okay, so one point I'll just back to here that I'd like to make is that we held our on-site meeting in November of 2019 with the landowners, and more or less confirmed what we had already understood, the requirement to relocate again for a cottage and septic system. Through some comments from my colleague Brendan Shapton at our office and Matt Persco, the landowner, we decided that it was advantageous for space planning to go to the south. So I think as everyone can see, we have that blue line to the south of the property rather than more so to the north of the property, which was originally discussed. We understood the scope of work. The engineering, truthfully, was quite easy with this particular project. The prime challenge was some of the environmental concerns. As with any drainage project, we need to satisfy the environmental approval agencies. Departments of Fisheries and Oceans have a Class E drain downstream, which is that lower Mud Creek drain number 1. So we submitted our design to the DFO. They are okay with it, provided 2 caveats. Follow our environmental protection specifications contained in our report. And the department had stated we could have no in-water work between March 15th and July 15th in any given year. The second part of the environmental puzzle for us was the species at risk component. And specifically, we've hired a biologist in this case because there was quite a lot in terms of the species at risk mapping in this area. The biologist found what I understand is called a movement area for eastern hognose snakes, which are a species at risk. So we have our biologist has written a report, has sent that to the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks. We're waiting to hear back. We have no reason to believe it won't be approved for construction. But in addition to that, we've taken some of the mitigation notes from that report again, and incorporated that for protection in our report. So as I say, a fairly environmentally heavy project here. I'm going to just fast forward to the design. And this is a summary of what we're planning to do to accomplish the relocation of the drain on the subject landowner's property. We have 67 meters worth of 525 diameter high density polyethylene pipe. So that's a 21-inch pipe. So essentially the 400, which is a 16-inch diameter, is being upsized to what would be a 21-inch and pulled to the south of the property. The remaining drain on the Apersco property will be filled in, and there will be some grass swales constructed over the locations where the open drain previously existed to help with some of the larger storm events and convey those further downstream. And one point that's not on the slide, but we are doing, while we're doing the work here on the subject property, there's about 30 meters of drain clean out downstream, specifically in the open portion of the drain. It's quite built up and it will help improve flow to clean that out in conjunction with this work. Okay. We've come up with a preliminary design and construction costs. The costs have not been tendered at this point, so these are estimates based on past similar construction. As you can see by our summary here, the drain construction itself is a little over $31,000 estimated. The non-construction costs, which are carrying costs, permitting fees, the engineering as well, $23,200, and our total estimate for the project is a little over $54,000. This slide is the assessment table. This is where we determine who would pay for that estimated $54,300. And as this is a relocation of an existing drain on the subject property, we've assessed the entire value of the work to the subject property, Matt and Pamela Apersco. And you'll see that for the net assessment, and this is contained within the report as well. Okay. One slide that's not in here for future maintenance. We are more or less maintaining the existing maintenance schedule as we're really just changing the location of the drain. But that's not included here. That's more for future reference and for your drainage superintendent's use down the way. So I believe that's it. Yes, I just had a couple drawing summaries that again are contained within, but with that, happy to take any questions or comments from council.
Any questions from any council members regarding this drain? Councillor Scott.
I have two. The first one is the 4 people that are involved in this drain, the list you just showed us, Brad, is they're all aware that they're going to have costs coming to them?
They are, except only one of the 4 people will be paying costs. That will be the Aperscos. No one else is being assessed on this drain.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you. And the other question I have is Mud Creek Drain 1, where does that come out on? What road is that, or what area is that?
It's quite a large drain, actually. It's interesting we looked at. I'm just going to bring up my drawing here. Take a look. Yeah, that's, I guess, within Port Franks, the closest location would be somewhat running parallel in north-south direction to Superior Street. That would be the closest location. And as far as where our drain, in this case, the Ontario, would outlet, Ransford Street and Superior Street is about the closest location, I would say, within the community.
Okay, so when it hits the Superior drain that is there, currently there are a number of properties on a little street off Erie Street that get flooded quite a bit by the creek. Now I realize the water is higher right now. How will they be affected by how this, sort of drains down as it's coming out? Yeah. And I realize it's mostly only storm times that it will happen, but are they going to be affected?
They will be affected to the extent is whatever they're affected under existing conditions will be maintained. So there will be no change in that particular area through this work.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Cook. You're on mute, Doug.
You need to unmute, Doug.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Brad. So this is all underground drainage, it looks like, Brad. It's all
Correct.
Going back to where the existing swale is, I guess, just trying to make sure they get the coloring correct. Is that what it looks like?
That's correct. There's a 18 meters of open portion currently on the property downstream. So the only change between open and closed would be that downstream 18 meters on the property. We are enclosing that and constructing a grass swale on top. So in the event there is a larger event, it would be conveyed overland and then to the open portion that exists now of that municipal drain downstream of the subject land.
Okay, I guess that was my question. Would you be picking up any more volume of water with this drain than you would have had with the existing drain that was there?
Different route, but the same volume, the same watershed.
Okay, nope, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? There's nothing from the applicant or, okay.
Notices were sent out in accordance with the act.
Councillor Dodge, you have a question?
Yes, your worship, generally under the Drainage Act, is it not the fact that one petitioner for to have work solely or a change on their property, they always have to pay all the costs?
They are.
That's normal, isn't it?
I would say it's common, certainly. Yes, for something like, but it's not a hard and fast rule by any means. We've had single request for improvement signatures with the cost distributed under multiple landowners who either benefit or contribute water to that. As this is a relocation to benefit a development, there's really no change in the function of the drain. So we don't see it fair, truthfully, to assess to anyone other than the benefiting landowner in this case.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for that report. Is there any, if there's no other questions, there's a recommendation. I guess we do have to pass the recommendation in the
We can pass it out. So close.
out. So if there's no other questions, I would ask that the consideration of the Ontario Street drain close and the regular meeting reconvene at whatever time it might be, 7:16. Is there a motion? Councillor Scott, seconded by Councillor Sageman. All in favor of that? That's carried. Thank you. And the recommendation 711 is there that it be received and adopted and a quarter revision be set for October 20th. Moved by Councillor Dodge, seconded by Councillor Scott. Any other questions on that recommendation? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Bunky.
Okay.
And we will see you again. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, everyone.
Okay, we move on. I guess you're still sharing your screen. We're going to get that.
Yep, just getting that.
Great.
The dog sitting on the drain.
Oh, no, you can see the dog. That's a swale for him, yeah.
We have to go back to. We'll still be sharing screen, is it?
Yeah.
There we go.
Sorry about that.
I like
Thank
the
you.
other picture better.
Be nice, Ron.
Okay, so we're back to 7.2, which is a public meeting for a zoning bylaw amendment for Park Bridge Lifestyle Communities and a public meeting for our Kona Lions Club. We'll deal with, we'll adjourn our meeting at 7:18 to hear these two applications. And I understand that we'll do them separate, but we'll be in a public
Yeah.
meeting for one so that Deputy Mayor Cook is declared a conflict with the Arcona Lions one. So can I have a motion that we adjourn our meeting to hear those planning act applications. Councillor Dodge, seconded by Councillor McGuire. All in favor of that? That's carried. Thank you. So our first application, where did I see that? Is dealing with
Park Bridge Lifestyle.
public meeting zoning bylaw. Where did that,
Park Ridge is up first.
Park Ridge.
Yeah.
Park Ridge Lifestyle on 9338 West Upper Wash Road. And Will, if you could present this application for us.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone.
I will.
The application is for a rezoning amendment related to the Ponderosa campground on West Ipperwash Road. A number of background studies were completed for this submission. The park is 418 sites, most of which are permanent seasonal sites, if you follow. The proposal consists of two components. One is to take the existing commercial zone that covers most of the park and extend that to the south to a higher bluff area, which would allow 106 additional sites. Part of the rezoning for that area would include zoning a pond and some areas adjacent to the pond and a woodlot to a conservation zone to address the results of the environmental impact study and some requirements of the ministry with respect to the Endangered Species Act. So this additional 106 sites would have two internal accesses to the existing campground and one new entrance at the peak of the bluff to West Ipperwash Road. The second component to the amendment would be to extend the commercial zone to the east, which would include some existing campsites. And some of these campsites, as you know in the report, there's 25 campsites that are of particular concern that extend a little bit further than some of the others into some natural heritage areas and Conservation Authority regulated areas. It's my understanding that when the current owner acquired the property, the previous owner had cleared some areas and installed some servicing for additional sites. However, since that time, some additional units, park model homes, have continued to be installed in those areas without the benefit of Conservation Authority approvals or building permits. And so normally we would want to bring a prepared bylaw to council as part of public meeting. However, we had a scheduled public meeting, and as is sometimes the case with a public meeting, things come up through consultation and review. So that was the case here. And some of these sites are very close to actually right on the edge of wetland features. And so the Conservation Authority has some issues they need to deal with in terms of their regulation. And they would like to see some mitigation put in place to ensure that there is no further encroachment. At this point, the Conservation Authority is not seeking to have any of these units removed, but they do want to see it recognized in a way that is going to ensure no further impacts. And so that we are already in discussions now about how to do that, looking at scheduling site meetings, things like that. I anticipate that we would come to council in the near foreseeable future with a proposal for how to mitigate some of these concerns through a development agreement. And when we bring that development agreement to council for approval, we would also have a draft bylaw in place for council to pass. Another matter is that through consultation by the applicant's agent with First Nation, Kettle and Stony Point, there was a desire to see an archaeological assessment of the new sites completed before that is before development commences. And so that would be a part of the, there would be a holding provision proposed through the rezoning requiring archaeological assessment before development commences. There's also traffic analysis done as part of the functional servicing report, it suggested that the additional traffic onto West Dipperwash Road would be manageable, well below the design capacity, and also that the location of the new entrance was at a point that did provide good visibility both ways. However, there was in the consultation report with Kettle and Stony Point some questions about traffic, and I'm not sure exactly how the traffic report would suggest that the concerns have been addressed, but as the concerns were raised after the traffic report was done, we're just looking for some clarification on that matter. Just the final item is that in the future, going forward, after the zoning is approved, there would also be a requirement for a site plan agreement that would at a later date be brought to council, but we're still out before actual construction of the project. That site plan agreement will be brought to council for approval, but we do have the environmental impact studies and the functional servicing reports and stormwater management reports that suggest and have been reviewed by community services staff that suggests that everything is feasible. So we have no concern in principle with the applications that are being presented, but we have a number of issues with those 25 lots up in the northeast area of the park that need to be sorted out before the bylaws is passed.
Okay. Does the applicant have any comments? This is being recommended to be deferred at this time till those issues.
Hi, my name's Michael Clark. I'm the planner for Monteith Brown Planning, representing Parkbridge. To your worship, yeah, we've been in consultation with the Conservation Authority and will to schedule a follow-up walk through the site and to do an assessment of that area of encroachment in the northeast portion of the development. And so, yeah, so we're looking forward to addressing those concerns and coming back sometime in the fall with a revised application to address all of the concerns of the Conservation Authority and the First Nations. I'm available here, and as well, I believe Sandy and Michael from Parkbridge are also here if you have any questions for us.
Okay. Are there any, there was no members of the public that asked to be
That's
present and that, so we've, with that, if there's no other questions from council. Seeing no questions from council, we will, because we're doing both public meetings together, we'll move on to the next public meeting. We'll deal with the planning report 25 later on in the agenda, but for that, that's all we need to do, I believe, at this time with the Parkbridge. So thank you for that. And we'll move on to zoning amendment 10 for 2020. Report 24 dealing with the Arkona Lions Club and 7297 Arkona Road. And Will, if you could present that for us, would be great.
Hey, this zoning application comes from the Lions Club with respect to a property that was actually just rezoned 3 years ago. It was a property there Arkona Lions acquired from the municipality, and the municipality acquired through tax arrears. So 3 years ago, the Lions rezoned the property to open space. One of the conditions on that rezoning was the completion of a environmental site assessment and the filing of a record of site conditions, because the property was formerly a gas station. So that when the property was owned by the municipality did complete some site cleanup, but did not go as so far as to file a record of site conditions. And so the provincial law requires that before a park can be established on a former gas station site, that a record of site conditions be filed, which can be a costly process, and also with the amount of time that has passed since the site assessment was completed, some of that work may need to be redone because of changes in standards. So there's potential large costs there involved. So the Lions have decided not to proceed with the park. They would like the zoning to revert back to the commercial zoning that was there before it was rezoned to open space. So from a land use planning perspective, we have no issues with what is being proposed. It's consistent with the official plan, with the other uses in the area. It allows uses that do not trigger the need for a record of site conditions, because they would be what's considered parallel uses to what was there before. So from a land use planning perspective, we have no concerns. We have a bylaw drafted that would delete the open space, the site-specific open space zoning provisions from the bylaw and change the zoning back to commercial 2. The second part of the Lions request is that the fees be waived. They have provided the $1,200 application fee in the form of a check, which we are holding on to pending council's direction. Normally, we don't encourage waiving application fees, but in this situation, council may find the situation a little bit unique. One thing in my report that I do need to correct, and I apologize for, I made an assumption that on further investigation is not true. Council waived the application fee 3 years ago when this, when the Lions applied to change the zoning to open space. And I had assumed that they paid that fee, but in fact, that was waived. And so the request is, again, that the application fee be waived, and so as staff, we're looking for council's direction in that matter as well.
Okay. Was there anyone from the Lions Club online? And there was no public participation. Any other correspondence from?
None has been received.
None has been received. Okay. With that, we will, if there's any other questions from council. Seeing none, we would have the recommendation to close the public meetings and reconvene our council meeting at 7:33. Councillor Dodge, second by Councillor Ferguson. Any questions? All in favor of that? That's carried. Thank you for that. And we'll deal with the two reports as they come up in our agenda. Thank you for that. We have no presentations or delegations. Item 10 is correspondence. There's three pieces of correspondence. One regarding Gypsy Moths, one regarding Rick Goodhand Memorial, and Committee of Adjustment. I'd ask that there's a recommendation that they all be received, and then we can deal with anyone wants to do. That's Councillor Sageman and Councillor Wilcox, that they be received. All in favor of that? That is carried. Is there any of those that we'd like to deal with? Mayor Cook?
I just would like to speak to 10.2 if I could, please.
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So that's through you to the rest of the council. I guess this is coming forward from the BIA, and I am sitting on I sit as the rep on the BIA for the municipality, plus a business owner in Forest. It was suggested by the BIA that perhaps a fitting tribute to Rick for all of his years of great service and community activity involvement for the years that he'd been would be a good recognition for the naming of the ballpark. of the main diamond at the Forest Ballpark at the by the pardon me, look at
Goldust?
by the curling club. Yes.
Hold it.
So yeah. So right now, that's what the proposal is. I understand from the report that I saw from staff that I think there's a 1-year waiting period before anything can get done. So I guess we just would encourage that staff keep moving forward with this process and see where it would go from there.
That's as our policy is in place, we will deal with this so that we'll come back. Staff report back regarding this. Councillor Dodge, you'll move that. Is there a seconder for that? Or you have a question, Councillor Dodge?
Yes, would it be preferable to table this till July of 2021? That's would give a year's. At that time, the staff could present their report and council could vote on it because the year time would be up.
I guess we just will have a report with a recommendation that on a, or I don't know that we need to table this. I think there can be a report come back, Councillor Dodge, and it'll have those dates and timelines in it, and it'll be on the tracker. So Councillor Wilcox, you had your.
I was second it that if we're gonna do what Deputy Mayor Cook said, I'm all good for that. So it looks like that's going in the right direction.
Okay. So that's if Deputy Mayor Cook moved that and Councillor Wilcox second that we get a report following our policy on how to proceed with the name changing. Is that okay? All in favor of that? That's great. Thank you. And that's anything else in the correspondence that we want to deal with, Councillor Wilcox?
Yes, on 10-1, your worship, through you to the CAO, I take it that the CAO is going to take that information and use that into our report that's coming back for Gypsy Moss Spring for next year. Because Mr. Hilliard did quite a bit of work there on his own property with Gypsy Moth already. So that's a fair statement or question, I guess, your worship.
That is correct, Councillor. And Mr. Hilliard is not the only person. There are a number of people providing information like that we'll provide back.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
There's a number of community associations and subdivision associations that are working on getting together and gathering information, and I'm sure they'll want to reach out to the municipality and work together, and that's exactly what our motion from back in June was, that we will work with associations. So as that information comes forward this fall, we'll put it all together. So
thank you.
Anyone else that's out there working on it, I'm sure they will be in touch with the municipality. So, okay, great, thank you. 10.4, site plan approval application for 49 Main Street East, Grand Bend. There's a recommendation there that the application be received, approved, and bylaw 46 be approved. Moved by Deputy Mayor Cook. There's a seconder for that, Councillor Sageman. Any questions regarding that? Councillor Scott.
Hi, thanks. I've got a couple. We currently have 2 stores already that are dollar stores. So I'm curious to, and the tender spot as well has items for all ages or sizes of pocketbooks. And I'm wondering if we've developed a plan when we're bringing in new businesses to have them come in that are not competing with those already there and are coming in complementing what we currently have. With COVID having been here and the business atmosphere making it hard for a lot of businesses to make ends meet or bringing in small amounts of profit, I just wondered if when we're going forward with new businesses, if we're looking at different things as opposed to same things.
No, we can.
that's,
It's a head shaker, no.
I don't know who wants to answer that. I guess anybody can apply for any business that they want to start. That's private enterprise. We're not in any trying to create monopolies on individuals. It's up to the general public to, so.
Okay.
And those
Am
who
I-
want to do
am I-
planning.
And I have a second question. So when we're having people come forward to put ideas and plans in the move forward, do we ask to have contractors from our own area do the work? Like, is there any set sort of way that they're doing things to tell us, like, this is going to have, from what I understand, a group from Windsor doing the work, and I just wondered if we encourage the people that put the plans forward to us to use local contractors.
Again, that would be protectionism of our own, and it would work in against our own contractors about going elsewhere to have work. So
Okay, just wondering.
something that we deal with. Anything else? Okay. So we've had, do we get a move in a seconder on that? Yep. So any other questions? All in favor of that site plan application 10.4? That's carried. Thank you very much. 10.5 is the zoning bylaw amendment for Arcona Lions Club. First of all, that the application be received, that it be approved, and that bylaw 52 be approved, and then direction on the waiving of the fees. Councillor Dodge.
So moved with the fees being waived as a service club is the one requesting.
Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Ferguson. Any questions? Councillor Scott and then Councillor Wilcox.
We had Forest come forward to ask for some help in their bills and their waiving of stuff, and we turned them down. And this is a service club, and I am a member of a service club, so I'm all for the work that we do. We've already given them a break, because according to what Will said earlier, that they did not pay the original fee. And I'm not sure that we should be going forward and having them be exempt from another fee.
Okay. Councillor Wilcox.
I totally agree with Councillor Scott. I was going by memory from when we did this 3 years ago. And I thought we waived the fee at that time because we felt it was going to be a park. But now it's going to be transferred back to a commercial piece of property that technically could be sold for profit. And I see no reason why to give the fees back, especially when they've already sent a check for them. It's like I've said before, a slippery slope to start giving fees away. And like Councillor Scott said, we've asked for other areas in the past too to waive fees and have been refused. So I'm in support of the land use change, but not in support of waiving the fees again a second time 3 years later.
Councillor Marsh.
Thank you, Your Worship. Some of you folks don't know all the details here. This piece of property was bought by the Lions Club to form a park, which would be really needed and well used, well placed in Arcona. They bought it from the municipality, and it was cleared with the first environmental work. Nothing was ever said to them. And with Lambton Shores knowing this, and even after several site visits that we were on the site with the Lions, knowing it was going to be a park and knowing that there was an RSC needed, nothing was said. The Lions feel that they've been blindsided. I think they're very disappointed that this whole project can't go ahead because they sure can't afford the fee. So they have a buyer who wants the property, who wants it back in commercial, or that makes it more saleable. I think we deserve to treat them, to try and get some respect back, and give them this favor of waiving the fee. I think we deserve it too.
Just follow up, your worship.
Councillor Wilcox, oh, you froze up.
Yeah, sorry, everybody froze up. Just to follow up, that's exactly what I just said. They're looking at selling the property. And even with this single fee, it's like giving them half price on the fees for the last 2 times. So even if the development for the park couldn't go through and they decided to sell the property, it's not our fault as council. I get where they're coming from, but I don't think we should be donating to service clubs by waiving fees, because then we'll have to do it for all of them. And that's my concern, especially when they're going to sell this anyway. So that's all I've got.
Councillor Marsh, then Councillor Scott, and I guess I'd like a clarification on whether they were given notice when we transferred it the first time that there was still some environmental issues that had to be here. I'd like to have that clarified, because I believe they were given notice. But Councillor Marsh?
Yeah, thank you, Worship. I totally agree with Councillor Wilcox that we shouldn't be giving fees back. Totally agree. I think this is a unique situation where the club was going ahead, bought it in good favor. I believe that the municipality sold it in good favor, but there was this unforeseen glitch that just botched the whole thing. And by the way, they are selling it for their cost. They aren't making a penny on it. They are selling it just for what they have in it. So nobody's making any money.
Okay, Councillor Scott?
We have a lot of volunteers and a lot of service clubs in our area. We turned down help for Forest. We did give a donation to the Canetto Theater, but that was because it was more an economic development thing, I think, than actually doing stuff. So I really think we can't be waiving fees for everybody, or we're going to have everybody and every group coming forward to do stuff. So I honestly believe, in my words, that it's a no, but I do want it back to C2 if that's what is needed. There's no reason not to do that.
Okay, so do we know what, I guess, when we transferred it the last time and waived the fees, it was going to be a parkland? Is there, I guess, was there fair? Was it a surprise that there was one other thing to do with the environmental changes to make that a parkland?
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, Will may have a little bit other information. Sorry, I had not had a chance to get right up on this report. As noted, though, I think the deal with the Lions was back in, I think, 2013. Also, as noted, the municipality is the one that did a great deal of the work to actually get the site ready. And there was a report done not very long ago, prior to Will coming, because this issue came up at that time. And there was a report that council received that actually outlined the whole issue around the environmental compliance certificate. And I just don't know beyond that. I do not, my recollection is that it was not necessarily a surprise. There were certainly some misunderstandings, okay, but that the expectations from both the municipality and the Lions were actually quite different. And that's really all that I can say. I can't add more than that.
Okay. Will, do you have anything to add to that?
So as was noted by Mr. Williams, this predates a lot of current staff. In my review of the file, I would have expected, my impression from reading the file is that the Lions Club should have been aware of the requirement before. The fact that it was rezoned, had to be rezoned to open space and included this provision is in itself some evidence that at least some degree of this was known. I suspect probably at the time, as was said, the municipality did the site work, right? Like the physical cleanup is for the most part done. So what remains is just some investigation, perhaps to ensure that there's nothing still there. Site conditions, which is a paperwork process. And I think maybe at the time it was presented as the site work is done, it's just filing the paperwork. But I think this filing of record site conditions is something that's been evolving over time, and a lot of times we don't appreciate just how much work it is to file a record of site conditions. We think the site cleanup's done, that should be it. But filing a record of site conditions is quite the paper exercise, and there is quite a cost associated with that. And maybe at the time, nobody appreciated what that really meant.
Okay. So we do have a motion on the floor that is the recommendation that's in there and giving staff direction to waive the fees. Really, if we want to put it all as one motion, or if we want to break that separate and have the recommendation approve the bylaw and then have a separate motion for the fees, I'd be more comfortable with that. Would the mover be okay to move that, we do the recommendation, receive the report, pass the bylaw, change the zoning, and then have a separate motion dealing with the fees? Is that okay with the mover and the seconder?
Yes, Your Worship.
Okay, and Councillor Ferguson seconded that. It's okay to break that apart into two motions?
Yes.
So we're voting on the recommendation to change the zoning and approve bylaw 52. Any other discussion on that? All in favor of that motion? That is carried. Thank you for that. The second part of that would be for direction regarding the waiving of the fees. Someone prepared to move? Councillor Marsh?
I'd like to make a motion, Your Worship, to make a motion to waive the fees in this unique situation.
Okay. Is there a seconder for that? I'm not seeing a seconder. Councillor Dodge, are you seconding that?
Yes.
Okay.
I'd like a
Discussion.
recorded vote.
Councillor Scott. Ask for
I'd like
recorded.
a recorded vote, please. Thank you.
Is there any discussion before we have the vote regarding that? I know it's, we have Councillor Sageman.
So I guess all I'd like to sort of say is in the past, we've turned down churches and community groups and theaters and things that wanted fees waived, and they would all be assets that would be in the community. Just given that the background is a little unclear on this one, I'm reluctant to waive the fees given that they're selling it to somebody who's gaining a piece of commercial property. If they're concerned about the fees, they could tack the $1,200 onto the purchase price because it sounds like they're not charging much for the land anyway. I just, having turned down such worthy projects in the past, I'd be really reluctant to do it now, to give it to a property that's going to be sold. Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion? I would ask the clerk to call the vote, please.
Councillor Scott,
No.
Councillor Sageman,
No.
Councillor McGuire,
No.
Deputy Mayor Cook has a conflict of interest, so will not be voting. Councillor Dodge,
Yay.
Councillor Ferguson,
You're on mute.
Yes.
Councillor Marsh,
Yes.
Councillor Wilcox,
No.
Mayor Weaver.
No?
Motion is defeated.
Okay. Moving on to 10.6, which is report 25 regarding the Park Ridge Lifestyle Communities. There's a recommendation there. This was the zoning meeting we had a little earlier, that it be received and that it be deferred to allow the applicant, staff, and Conservation Authority to address concerns related. Motion to move that recommendation, defer that to Councillor McGuire and Councillor Scott. Any questions regarding that? All in favor of that? That is carried. Thank you very much. And 10.7 is an appointment of an engineer for the Manning Drain. His recommendation that it be received and that GM Blue Plan Engineering be appointed. Moved by Councillor Marsh, second by Councillor Sageman. Questions regarding that? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. 10.8, an appointment to the Huron Shores Area Transit Advisory Committee. There's a short report there that the advisor or the committee met and recommending Deputy Mayor Cook be appointed, and that's moved by Councillor Wilcox, second by Councillor Ferguson. Any questions regarding that?
I have a comment.
Go
Your
ahead.
worship, I think as a thank you, Deputy Mayor, for volunteering. I think it's very good. Thank you.
Any other questions on that? All in favor of that? That's carried. Thank you. I have no notices of motions. I don't believe there's any emergent issues. We move on to bylaws, bylaw 42, 52, 53, 54, and 55. There's a recommendation there that they be read the first, second, and third time. Councillor Dodge, second by Councillor Sageman. Any questions? All in favor of those bylaws? That is carried. Adjournment. Moved by Councillor Ferguson, seconded by Councillor Scott. Any questions? Everyone stay safe as school goes back and we move on to colder weather and inside weather, and it's going to take a little extra to make sure we get through the next few months. So with that, all in favor of adjournment?